I'm Elizabeth Eagle, and some may call me crazy, some may call me eccentric. What I am is a published author, an artist, have been an engineer, and all these experiences have helped me to believe that there is such a thing as living light, and it has a purpose. What is living light? Well, I believe the light that I'm about to show you is alive and is consciously communicating with us. Now, how does light communicate? Well, it shows up in unexpected forms that lead me to believe that they're trying to give us a message. I believe the message they're trying to portray is a message of hope, and that they're here to support us positively, because there is so much negativity on the planet at this time. So I started noticing these light beings in my photography. A lot of people call them orbs. Now, I'm not going to tell you what to call them because I'm not sure. They're not only orbs. There's those that are rectangular, those that are light beings, those that travel, and they show up in all different kinds of photography. Please keep an open mind as you watch and ask questions, because I don't have the answers, but I want to give you a different perspective, something to ponder, so that perhaps your awareness can be expanded, and maybe you'll start noticing these things in pictures that you see or movies that you watch. So what is living light? Let's find out.
So what are orbs? Well, I Googled it quite some time ago. There's all kinds of opinions on it. I hate to say, look, this is what it is, and you all have to agree. What feels right to me and what I believe is that some of them are angels. They're energy beings, and the energy on planet Earth, the frequency is changing and it's raising. And with our digital cameras that they've made so well, the cameras actually can pick up light frequency a lot better, and it's for better pictures and that. But it also ends up capturing orbs.
This living light phenomena has been going on since at least the 1800s, ever since cameras were invented. And I believe they've been around even longer than that. Now, what I believe does not necessarily have to be what you believe. And I won't try to convince you to believe what I do. I'd like you to keep an open mind and make your own decisions based on the evidence that I present. I believe that this living light is actually an interdimensional, or in another dimension, form of consciousness that's trying to give us the message that we're not alone, that we're never alone, that we actually have help from the unseen world. I believe that life does not necessarily have to have physical form, is not dependent on oxygen or carbon. So our limited scientific view of the world is that that's life. Humans are the only life forms, and Earth is the only planet that can sustain life because it's got oxygen and water. Well, I hope that this film proves that life and living light can exist everywhere and anywhere and does not necessarily depend on its environment. Light beings have been around me all my life, and here I am at 1 year old with what I think is an angel on my shoulder. And this is 1988 at my wedding with another light being on my shoulder. Could it be the same light being? Now, my home security camera picks up things with and without the infrared. Here on the right-hand side and on the left, these are some of the first orbs I started filming in my house with my home security cameras. And at the time, I only had 4 cameras, and I've gone to 8 cameras that are higher resolution. But as you can see, they are kind of flying around my house, and this is outside in my front yard, and I call this an orb shower. I went outside, it's not snowing, raining, there's no bugs out, yet this phenomena is occurring. They swirl, and there's definitely something there. Now, I slowed down some of these clips so that you can see their movement better. Some of them move in jumps, they swirl, there's different shapes. And this is from one of the new security cameras with higher resolution. And this line kind of light being, or rod, or whatever, I'd never recorded one of these before, and it kind of moves horizontally, and this one amazed me. I walk by the camera and very quick I see these things, rewind it, and then film it. And this one looks like possibly a dove of peace, or an angel, or I can't tell you what it is. You decide for yourself. But I think it's incredibly interesting and something most people have not seen before. Now, this was election night, presidential election night 2016, and I believe this many orbs were active because of the high energy. So many people on the planet focused on this one evening, this one election. Now, these are the security cameras in my house, and as you can see from camera to camera, which are filming different areas of the house, these orbs, are light beings, are appearing on multiple cameras. They don't show up as well. Like in these two pictures, there's more light, and so the infrared isn't picking up as well. But sometimes I get these without the infrared. Now, the three blobs in this picture is something on the camera lens that I need to wipe off. This little light being in my front yard, it could be two playing around, but they were there for 15 minutes in the same location, disappeared for 5 minutes, and then came back. Now, these remind me of a little fairy, but this one in my driveway is obviously a rod, and it's changing brightness, color, and intensity, and it stayed for an hour and a half. They're pretty much in the same location. It was daylight, so this is not infrared. And another day, I was curious if I could brush this rod off, but it is in front of the camera, in front of the broom, I mean to say. So that light being was in front of the broom, and then I try to brush it away. It looks like it jumps away. It doesn't get brushed away. It moves very fast and it's gone. And this little light being was so quick, caught it out of the corner of my eye, slowed it down, looks like a string or something similar. It's changing shape. But what I found most interesting is that on the other side of the room, when it came to the other side of the room, it was like a little rod jumping. So definitely these things are changing shape and moving differently. Here's the Wizard of Oz, and see that little straw? I thought that was a straw coming from the Scarecrow, but as I slow it down, you can see that it's very similar to the light being that we recorded in my house.
Technicolor camera,
and of course, the cameras, the Technicolor cameras, were 400 pounds apiece. And they took those three different cameras and they recorded red, green, and blue on these different cameras, and then they merged them on the photo printer into one image. So the fact that this light phenomena shows up even though three separate cameras were recording it is pretty phenomenal, and I believe that it is recording something very real that is taking place. This phenomena has been taking place since the 1800s, and some of the illustrations of the photos I show prove that. Now, none of these photographs have been altered in any way. The contrast has not been adjusted. These are actual photographs from back in the 1800s until today. And all different kinds of cameras have recorded this phenomenon. From daguerreotypes back in the day, tintypes, film cameras, digital cameras, underwater disposable cameras, instant Polaroid cameras, and even today, Hollywood movie cameras. And Technicolor cameras, which take three different cameras to cause an image, or to create the image, have also recorded them, which means that on 3 different cameras, the same phenomena is being recorded. So I believe the underlying message I'd like to get across is that we are not alone. We're never alone, that these things are around us all the time, but only choose to show up at certain times. Times of celebration, times of high emotion, like on battlefields where people have died, or celebrations where people are happy. So I think that they are attracted to human emotion, kind of like moths to a flame, perhaps, and that they show up not only in infrared photography, but with cell phone cameras. It's not only me getting these images. There's images posted on the internet from many different people, little video clips that show moving orbs. I recently got 8 high-resolution security cameras installed in my house, which is when I started getting different shapes of light beings, like dragonflies moving in sideways, line beings or rods, ones that look like doves or angels, multicolored ones that seem to shape-shift and grow and jump. They seem to move in jumps. Ones that look like little fairies. So there's not only one type, and I don't know whether they're all the same thing. Now, orbs go back to the 1840s. There's odd-shaped white orb there, and then the round traditional orb. And I don't know whether to call these orbs, but here is a daguerreotype camera from 1847. Franklin Pierce here has orbs on his chest, near his underarm, and then in front of his hand. Now, this lumber mill in 1872 has some of those irregularly shaped orbs in the picture. Now, here in 1889, in a family's home, here's a darker orb. And here this cowboy seems to like his beer, and so does the orb. An orb shows up right by his beer. And these children playing in 1898 also have an orb behind them. I think it's because they were having fun. 1800s in Mexico, more of those odd-shaped light beings. And this is Henry Ford with one that shows up on the tree beside him. Very interesting. And here's another one from the 1800s in this old picture. Now, this was a casket, a funeral, and the moving light being on the child's arm shows up obviously. I don't know if there's a category of light beings, just like there's a category of animals. You've got your horses and your rabbits and your this and your that, and they're all different, but they all belong to the animal family. I don't know if these all belong to the same family of light. They're light workers. Perhaps there's people like me on the planet that believe that they're light workers. I believe I'm a light worker. I also believe that I'm a rebel, a renegade, and a system buster. I'm here to show people another perspective that they might not have considered, but not to convince them of anything. So you make your own decisions and consider the evidence, and perhaps you'll start seeing these in your photography or old pictures or movies that you watch. If you keep your eyes open, I believe that you will, because they're here. And I believe they're going to continue to increase in visibility, and that they will communicate more. I see them with or without a camera lens often. I see them through the camera lens. Often I feel them, and that's when I take pictures. Other times I call them in, and they actually come. They don't like to feel trapped. Like in paranormal investigations, you'll see maybe 1 or 2 orbs in a whole half-hour show, and they make a big deal out of that. But I don't think more show up is because it's kind of a scary energy and they're trying to capture them. And these are free spirits, I believe. Now, in the past, World War I, by the guns, you see this orb or rod jumping. And this World War II bombing, taking from probably a military plane, shows very clearly orbs dancing around, and maybe they're concerned because of the warfare and the bombs. And I believe they're concerned about what we're doing and fighting each other. And here's one that shows up over the Capitol building. There was a couple of them, but I just show this one in particular because it was so bright. And here in World War II, a very fast blue light being comes across the screen. And here at La Fère Bridge in France, 1944, this is actual footage from back then. Cuba, here are very clear light beings coming from a fire. And here's Castro giving a speech with doves in front of him, but what is that behind him? That's not a dove, it's not a bird, it's a light being of some sort there. And this strange light is showing up more increasingly, but this is 1950s. So in this shot, President Clinton has a light being in front of his leg, and this is Castro giving a speech, and there's a similar light being. This is from the Western Front, a documentary, and it shows a tunnel in France of the Hindenburg Line, and as you can see, there's an orb shower happening. Many, many people died in this tunnel, and I believe the orbs are there because of that energy that is still in this location. What this evidence presents is what I believe, and they're my theories that come forth. There's no scientific proof for these things at this time, except that when a soul leaves a body, there is a certain amount of weight that the body changes. It lightens in weight by a couple of grams. And that's been scientifically proven. But whether these are spirits or angels or plasma life forces we don't understand, alien intelligence gatherers, who knows? Are they demons? Are they something that we don't even know what they are? We can't explain it. So this topic is unexplainable at this point. Now, some could be lens flares. Some could be dust on the lens and lens refraction, but not all of them. I don't think. If you watch the film and use your discernment, you will see that some of these are definitely unexplainable, and whether they're unidentified flying objects or whatever, all I'll guarantee you and be truthful and honest with you is that there has been no hanky-panky, no Photoshop, no graphics, no artificial anything. This is raw footage. So what I was doing was, if I saw something on a DVD that I was watching, say, I would play it back on my regular TV monitor and then film with my cell camera or film with my other camera. So a lot of this is shot from my security camera in the house, and then when I play it back, then I shoot that with my cell phone. Same thing with movies that I rent from check out from the library. Those I also film just with my cell phone. So there is some distortion in some of the pictures, like, you know, lines and waves, but that's because of the difference in the projection and the recording. But what I've recorded is definitely there. There's something there. Now, it's not physical, it's light. And light exists in all different spectrums, and possibly because digital cameras have increased the range of light frequency that they can record, that may be why more are being picked up at this time. The following videos and photos I have taken, fast-moving orbs here, rainbow like snowflake light beings. It's not raining or snowing in these pictures. These are still shots. Here it is raining, but rain does not move up. And this one is actually in motion as well. It's from a hike I took. I took this shot at Christmas of a friend's hands. They show up at times of celebration. Here we are in Manitou Springs before a Mardi Gras parade. They like theater productions. I went caving with my Pikes Peak Community College caving class in Cave of the Winds, and all 270 something pictures showed up with orbs in them. Now, this was a digital camera with the flash, but I do not believe that this is dust because of the cell-like, amoebic-like interiors of some of these orbs, plus the exceptional variety of shapes. Now they're similar to rectangular orbs and all different colors, sizes, degrees of intensity. Some of them look like snowflakes or cells in a way. They look like they're swarming to the right, moving in a circular pattern. They do seem to be attracted to the caves. There were more in these shots than I've ever taken before consistently. And like I said, they're different shapes and the different colors. They could be like different kinds of dogs, just different kinds of light beings, or different kinds of people, all different shapes and sizes and colors. Now, the orbs do show up at times of celebration, and here I am at a tree lighting ceremony as Jingles the Elf, and as you can see, they're swarming. Again, no bugs, no snow, no rain. And that was with an infrared camera, and these are with a digital camera with the flash. And again, the rectangular shapes and the round ones and the different colored ones seem to show up when people are happy. The children are happy here. And here's a bright red, I don't know, Christmas orb, I'm not sure. But like I've said before, times of celebrations, parades and such, they are definitely there. And now whether you take the pictures or not, I believe they're there. You might not see them. These were moving faster than the speed of light to be captured like this. Now these orbs showed up in a Christmas parade. They're chasing me while I'm the elf. There was nothing there. Here's rods in the movie Christmas at Cartwright's, filmed with regular movie cameras. Here are some bouncing orbs at a concert, but the interesting thing is that there's also a rod inside an orb. And these fast-moving light beings were near my camper, my little RV. The vibration on the planet is rising. And what does that mean? Well, it means that the veil is lifting, which means that we're being able to see more into other dimensions, and we're fighting for the survival of the species, which is also a spiritual fight. And I believe these light beings are here to contribute to projecting light onto the planet, to exposing things that need to be taught and brought into public awareness. And I think they're here to help. And I believe we need all the help we can get on this planet at this time. Now those with faith that believe that God is everywhere at all times and is omnipotent might buy the theory that these are all part of God, which everything is, in my opinion. These light beings, these angels, this supportive unseen world is very real. And there are skeptics that won't believe any of this. And that's okay too. Skeptics are very important because they tend to ask the questions that those that believe full-fledgedly like me, oh, these are this and this is that. Well, there's no telling really what these things are. Orbs can be any shape, so I don't know what to call them other than light beings. They can be rectangular, round, all different colors. Some look like cells in the middle. Some have faces, appear to have faces. I wish I knew what they are, and don't you wish you knew what they were? What is a light being? What does conscious contact mean? Are they communicating? If so, what are they communicating? And will that communication increase? And will those messages become more clear as time passes? Now orbs also show up underwater with a disposable camera. Notice the small one in between the mask in the middle of the nose, and then there it seems like the same orb moved and grew in size. So I can't say whether those are the same orb or not, but here we are underwater with rainbow orbs, and here are pink orbs underwater that are totally different from bubbles. You can see the difference. These light beings underwater with the dolphins jump like the fairy illustration I showed before, or like the rods. These internet pictures prove that other people are capturing these, and the Great Pyramid of Giza is a sacred site, and here they appear. And this is the king's sarcophagus in the king's chamber. And these swarming orbs, multicolored swarming orbs, are also from the internet. Now this diamond shape is an interesting shape. I hadn't seen that very often. And I finally saw it in this documentary, and there is a triangular phenomenon happening. Now this was taken in a museum near Cripple Creek, and these are heart-shaped or butterfly-shaped light beings. And this is at the end of a marathon, so people are excited then. And some orbs appear to have a face. Whether it's a face or not, I can't answer that question. So this documentary from YouTube is in Brazil, and it shows that these orbs shapeshift.
Approaching the camera, and it shoots left and zips right past the light pole.
Here again, this orb is shape-shifting. It's large, then it gets small, and then it seems to jump right in front of the light, right there in front of the traffic light, and zips off the screen. Now this was shot in Nepal by US researchers, so it's very valid film. And there seems to be an abundance of orbs, and they traveled together possibly, and this was filmed by US researchers. So here we are in the Himalayas, and there are just multiple orbs and a lot of activity. And this is not infrared, so this is daylight footage. They show up in the daylight and in infrared photography. Now this footage is coming from an airplane. Someone was filming outside the airplane, and it shows orbs and rods in the same instance. So whether they're related or not, I can't say, but they seem to have a symbiotic relationship. And this rod was taken during a sunrise from my back porch. Now, Doreen Virtue is an angel reader and an expert in angels, and they seem to like certain people more than others, and they like her energy. So here's a rod that appears in one of her readings, and this again was the night of the election, and these strange light beings showed up, and I'd never taken these pictures of this type before. Now this is an interesting shot because it kind of appears like they have wings to them, or fins of some sort. This one resembles the dove that was in my living room. This video will introduce you to this topic, but I believe this video will go on and continue as new forms of light and life are found. We're on an investigation. We are on an adventure to expand and explore what we currently believe to be reality. And reality contains energy and is just not physical. We are light beings. We have energy that flows through our bodies, and perhaps we're connected with the energy of the universe this way. Now, this documentary will show that orbs, I believe, can be cellular level size, microscopic cellular level size, up to 2 to 3 miles wide. So they're in my house, they're on security cameras, they're in regular film documentaries, National Geographic, BBC, Hollywood movies, movies from the wars back in the day. It's very interesting that this is all coming together now and being presented at this time in history where we do need hope. We need to know that we're not alone and that we have support from the unseen world. I think that they are consciously communicating with us, which is why they have increasingly showed up in regular movies. Maybe subliminally, they're making themselves known and seen so that they're preparing somebody for something. Perhaps they're preparing them for this documentary so that they can be recognized. Orbs started showing up in the movies for me for the first time when I'd gone to see the movie The Revenant with Leonardo DiCaprio. And I was sitting in the theater with my son, and all of a sudden I saw this, clear as a bell, an orb come out from one of the actor's shoulders. And so I noticed the scene, and when I got the DVD, went back home and watched it on my TV and was able to film this from my TV. Now the orb shoots right from his arm, clear as a bell, and this is with daylight movie cameras, and clearly shows an orb. So after seeing this, I thought, well, I might have missed a lot in films, and went back. Here we are in the Hateful Eight with Kurt Russell, and there are obvious blue orbs traveling right beside him, and they're obviously not bugs or dust. The fact that they show up increasingly in the more recently produced movies, I find fascinating. And here we are with Samuel Jackson, very small orbs, but very active orbs. Little ones clear as a bell, again, showing up, moving all around Samuel Jackson. And this is from the movie The Thing, another Kurt Russell movie from 20 or more years ago. Now this movie, Brooklyn, I got from Redbox, so it's a very recent movie, and I noticed these orbs. He's very sad in this scene, and so they come around at times of strong emotion. And this is Runaway Jury with Gene Hackman, and there it goes right in front of his face. Now, National Geographic, A Quest for Gold, I noticed that this light being was zipping around, and it wasn't a flashlight. This is the movie Misconduct. This light being comes from her knees and travels. Ryan O'Neal, this is years ago, and there's another rod jumping right in front of him. And this is Poldak from BBC. And these things happen in the blink of an eye. Here in How to Be Single, these light beings were very noticeable behind these two actors. And it's interesting because after this was shot, they added a mirror ball to the scene, but that wasn't until scenes after this showed up. And mirror balls do not create orbs like that. Now this wispy little light being shows up in the same movie. Now, the ghost story, BBC, this is a very clear orb chasing her. And another excellent orb shot from the same documentary or movie is blue, and then it changes shapes and colors. And this green one from National Geographic is a very good example of shape-shifting multicolor rod or light being. Not sure what to call these things.
Hey, James, real quick, just before I start shadowing, I don't know about...
In this movie, Ride Along 2, there seems to be a happy little bouncing orb in the background. Playing along with the movie, not sure why it's there. And Christina Aguilera in Burlesque has an orb with her, and then again when she's singing, a little orb goes right behind her. There it goes. This orb comes right from her chest and another one from her mouth when she's singing. There it goes from her mouth. And here's the same movie, Burlesque, with Cher, and this blue light being shows up with her and flashing and making itself very well known. And here we have Billy Bob Thornton in Miracles from Heaven, and this little light being comes right by his eye. This colorful traveling light being in First Footprints I found fascinating. Not exactly sure what that is. And here we have water on the right, but on the left a rod is jumping around. It's obviously not water or a bug, but quite interesting. Now here in this Arab-Israeli conflict documentary, this square light being is obviously visible and then kind of disappears into the shadow. They're showing up and being filmed during these tsunamis, earthquakes, volcanoes, and this is an interesting fact that we've documented because I believe that they are concerned with what humanity is doing to the planet and to the environment and to the atmosphere and to the species that are increasingly going extinct on the planet. Now, light beings seem to be attracted or concerned about disasters, and here we have a light being flying through the top of a volcano. This footage is from YouTube, and here in front of the ash cloud comes some form of light being. Could be a UFO, which could be the same thing. UFOs could be light beings, but obviously concerned about what's going on with this volcano. So we have them traveling into volcanoes, out of volcanoes, but I don't believe they're causing the volcanoes. I believe they're showing up, possibly because they're concerned, but this proves that environment does not dictate whether they can exist or not. And here from National Geographic, this bright white orb there in almost the middle of the screen is very clear. Now, this news footage of the Thailand tsunami in 2004 shows clearly a light being moving with the tsunami as it devastates the land. So I believe they are concerned. Again, this is actual news footage. Somebody else besides myself saw it, decided to record it and share it. So people's consciousness or awareness of this phenomenon is growing. These light beings seem to be particularly concerned with the tsunami in Thailand back in 2004, and this was actual news footage somebody filmed from their TV, and they're noticing these things. I'm not alone, so people are sharing this on YouTube. But clear as a bell, here comes a light being right over the carnage of the tsunami. Now, this phenomenon seems to occur more often when there is high emotion, whether that be happy, joyous, party kind of emotion, or really sad, funeral kind of, broken heart emotion. It could be that they are attracted to certain vibrational frequencies which these emotions emit, similar to moths to a flame. They're attracted, and so they're curious, and they come around and they show up. So in essence, they appear to be attracted to frequencies of emotion, because emotions do put out vibrations, and these vibrations can be sensed and felt by people, kind of like body language, but in an energetic way. And I believe these light beings are responding to that energy. Now, multicolored light beings and rainbow-colored light beings are showing up increasingly. Digital photography is helping these show up, I do believe, because there's different frequencies being recorded. Here is a neon rod, all different colors of the rainbow. And I do call these rainbow light beings because they do have all the colors of the rainbow in them. I like the diagonal stripes. They're multicolored, and this beautiful light being. And this is my backyard, my son picking peaches, but this lovely light being shows up. Now, this is in a burn scar from a huge forest fire here in Colorado, the Hayden fire, and I was walking where this burn scar was regenerating itself, and I think possibly these light beings were here to help that process. Now, some of them are brighter than others. Some are spherical with rainbows in them. Then there's the other shape that are like oblong. And as I said, some are brighter than others. But they're obviously, I believe, something other than refraction or light refraction on the lens. Now, this corner kind of orb, sometimes I see before I take the pictures. And here's a really nice bright one. So, all shapes, sizes, and colors. Here we have more of a purple color with the green, so it's not all colors of the rainbow. I take many, many pictures and then go back and search for these. I sometimes call them in and ask them to show up, and they do. Other times they don't. These light beings are showing up increasingly, as I've said, and this is near Horsetooth Falls in Colorado. But then again, we traveled to the Canadian interior, and also a lot of them in Garden of the Gods. I think that has to do with the energy of the rocks and the sacredness of this land to the Indians. This is one of my favorite shots, so I repeated. I like the diagonal multicolored lights in this shot. And here we have an orb in a cave in Garden of the Goddesses. And here's my mom on vacation, and she has some spectacular light beings right there at her hat. Now this is Sedona, Arizona in 2006, and I had gone on a spiritual sabbatical there for 6 months and started seeing these light beings at first. Now this could be just refraction off the camera, but this is something different. Again, here are rainbow light beings with purple, and this is in my front yard. I have a lot of plants in my front yard. I think they like nature, they show up. And this is Castlewood Canyon in Colorado. And as you can see, the crevices in the rocks, the little caves, they show up in pairs, singularly, with rainbow light beings and with the yellow light beings. These yellow ones are showing up. And this is one of my favorite shots of a striped rainbow light being orb. But these yellow ones caught my eye, and the reason they did is because I found this one in a Matthew McConaughey movie, Free State of Jones. Look at the yellow one jumping like a rod right in front of Matthew's face. Now, Monty Python, The Meaning of Life. This one looks similar to the one in The Wizard of Oz. And here's I Love Trouble with Julia Roberts, and they're flying around her. What they are, I can't tell you. What do you think they are? Here's Fiddler on the Roof, and here is a very quick moving little rod in front of him. And here is a very obvious blue little light that shows up, and here's a yellow one that shows up. So this is Once Upon a Time in the West, and it wasn't raining inside this building. These are rods that are changing shapes. I don't believe these are scratches on the film, or they wouldn't shift as they do. This is Garage Sale Mystery, and this little orb is obviously not her flashlight because it does things flashlights can't do, which is move in front of objects and then behind them, and then again in front of objects where she couldn't have been shining a flashlight. And these rainbows coming off of these objects that I caught from documentaries, I found very interesting. And this moving light that creeps over her face happens in two different parts of this garage sale mystery. I find that very interesting. Not sure if that's any kind of lens flare, but here in The Quiet Man, John Wayne has just killed a person in the ring and high emotions, so what's going on in his face is interesting. And the rainbows up on top of his hat I found quite intriguing. What they are or why they show up, those are my theories. That's what I believe. But that doesn't make it true, and the proof is yet to be revealed, the proof and the truth. But I believe the illustrations that I've presented and the evidence that I have, the films that I've shot from all different kinds of sources, using my cell camera, filming from my TV screen or my security camera monitors, are very convincing. And the fact that they are not edited except for zooming in or slowing down to make points, I believe that this body of evidence raises a lot of questions. And you answer your own questions for yourselves. I recommend that you go back to pictures, family movies, regular movies, what you watch on TV. Just kind of keep your eyes open. If you think you see something, rewind it, rewatch it. If you can slow it down, do that. Look on YouTube, look on, look them up on the internet. You can look up orbs and see what other people are saying. So NASA cameras also record this phenomenon. And with analysis, it can be proved that the ones that the Space Shuttle Columbia recorded are 2 to 3 miles wide, if not bigger.
a couple of star-like things, and a lot of things swimming in the foreground. Can you describe what you're seeing?
Well, the long line is a tether, and there's a little bit of debris that kind of flies with us.
So what you just saw on the videotape showed a satellite attached to a 12-mile-long tether, which is like a conductor cable. It's a very, very thin, 1/10 of a centimeter in thickness cable that was used to conduct electricity in the Earth's ionosphere. As we saw earlier, space is supercharged with high-energy particles, and NASA was trying to take advantage of these particles to see if they could build up a charge on the tether and actually see a gain or produce some electricity. They charged the tether with some electricity, but then an overload of highly charged particles flooded the tether and produced so much electricity it snapped. On February 25th at about 7:30 p.m., the tether broke away from the shuttle Columbia and drifted about 77 miles away. So the scene that you just saw actually starts at about 77 miles away. The camera pans down, we see a long line, which is 12 miles long of tether, a small satellite attached to the end, and then a swarm of little objects, little balls of light, just moving in from all different directions and different velocities and different speeds. Then the cameras actually zoom in and we actually get to take a close look at what we're seeing here. It's astounding. We see up here in the right-hand corner, we see a very large disk clearly going behind the tether, magnetic field effect. And coming through the middle, we see another very large disk moving clearly behind the tether. The light from the tether shines in front of the background object, which is the UFO. If we use this piece of wood as an example, we can see what a disk looks like when it's passing behind a foreground object. It's really very quite simple. So if the disk was passing in front of the tether, it would look something like this, and it doesn't look like that. When we look in the middle and we see this large disk passing through the middle, we can see again it's passing behind the tether. If this was the tether and this was the UFO, we could clearly see it's going behind. And if it was going in front, it would look something like this. It doesn't look like that. So because we know the shuttle is at least 77 miles away and drifting further away from the object, from the tether, and we know the objects are going behind the tether, we can therefore use the 12-mile length of the tether as a relative measuring rod for actually making measurements of the minimum diameters of some of these disks. And according to my calculations, against the 12-mile length of the tether, this disk passing through the top section here measures a minimum of 2 to 3 miles in diameter. That's assuming it's right up next to the back of the tether. If it's actually farther behind the tether than I think, then the disk could be much, much larger.
Here is a cell under the microscope. Most of these are algae cells, but they resemble orbs. Microscopic size, how big can they be? What shapes can they have? These are diatoms, which is a major form of algae, and they take all different shapes and sizes. So I'm not sure if there's a relation between cells and light beings and the ones that are 2 to 3 miles wide in the universe, but this diatom seems to be similar to the one in front of President Clinton's leg. I believe light beings have a part to play, and I do believe they're alive. We might not understand this form of life because our scientific knowledge is limited. I believe, and I think that it's true, that there is much more to life than meets the eye. Much more for us to learn, new things for us to understand, different paradigms to explore, and new realities to prove. There are different dimensions that we cannot see, different frequencies that we haven't experienced, and I believe in the future we'll be developing ways to measure this in a more scientific way. But in the meantime, I believe this film shows evidence of something that has not been explored and has not been explained. And I'm excited for the future to continue to film these things and ask the questions. What do you believe? What are they? Why are they here? And what is their intended purpose? Will we ever know the answers to these questions? I have no clue.